All right, and now for something completely different. So I'm happy to be here to have a chance to talk a little bit about the translation of science, and particularly the opportunity of translating that to consumers that oftentimes can have very divergent views on things like health and well-being. And I'd like to talk a little bit about, okay, how do we bring science and innovation together with consumer beliefs to have a winning business? My talk is broken out into a few different sections. The first thing I want to do is I want, just in a few slides, talk a little bit about the Campbell Soup Company. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with some of our flagship brands, but it's a nice opportunity to highlight that we're so much more than soup. The second thing I want to talk about are some radical shifts that have been happening to us, right, in the marketplace and how we're reacting to them, and how we're galvanizing around this idea of real food that matters for life's moments. And I'll talk a bit more about what that means and what it's meant for us in terms of how we're looking to realize our growth agenda as a company, meaning how we're looking to grow in the marketplace, some of the things that we're doing differently, and then how that's leading us to some new foresights, trying to anticipate where things are going to go in the future. And I'll use that as an opportunity to talk a little bit more about Habit, our personalized nutrition company, and how we're thinking about personalized nutrition at Campbell. Okay. So with that, Campbell is about an $8 billion business. We've been around since 1869, so almost 150 years now. And we have 12 brands with sales that are exceeding $100 million. As I said, I'm sure many of you are familiar with what we call Red and White, our iconic Campbell brand. But we also have Swanson, Prego sauce, Pace salsas, the Plum Organics baby food line, Pepperidge Farm snacks, Arnott's, a snack line that is primarily in Australia, but be looking for Tim Tams coming here around the holiday time. Kelsen, the Danish butter cookies, Bolthouse Farms, Garden Fresh Gourmet, of course V8 Juice, and pending acquisition, you may have heard of Pacific Foods, an organic soup company. We're organized into 3 different divisions, right? And this also shows some of the products that are in each of those divisions. But America's Simple Meals and Beverages, and you can kind of think about that as a lot of our shelf-stable products, things that you're going to find more in sort of the center part of the store, right? Global Biscuits and Snacks, and then Campbell Fresh. Campbell Fresh is our division is really leaning more into fresh foods, and these are the ones that you're going to find kind of on that retail perimeter, right? Which is a higher growth area, and we recognize it as being such. And one of the things that we're very proud of is that we have a great heritage rooted in different family entrepreneurs. People don't always think about soup in a can as being inventive, but John Dorrance, who's a past president of Campbell and started out as a chemist there, he's the one that figured out how to condense soup to help to reduce shipping costs. Margaret Rudkin, when her son was struggling eating commercial breads at the time, started baking her own loaves. And not only did that give him some nutritious bread that he could eat, but it was so delicious that the business took off. And I love the fact as a nutritionist that there always seems to be this tension between the idea that something is healthy and that something healthy can't taste good. And right, in our heritage is a great example of somebody that brought those together. And I think that when you can, that's a winning formulation. My good buddy Neil Grimmer from Plum Organics, who innovated in baby food, right? Developing baby food that was made with wholesome ingredients in an organic format and in a pouch format. What he was looking to do was make it simpler. When him and his wife had their baby daughters, Izzy and Pax, they wanted something that would be nourishing and portable, and hence Plum Organics was born. So what are we facing when I'm saying there's a lot of shifts going on in the industry? There's a lot of things coming at us right now, and the pace of change in many ways is faster than what we've ever experienced, right? We have massive demographic shifts, millennials, am I right? Nah, I'm not going to guess we don't have the familiarity with that commercial, but that's okay. But anyway, the millennials in the workplace now exceed the number of boomers. And coming on their heels, my daughters, right? We have the digital generation or Generation Z that are coming up. Very different outlooks on the world, and we're servicing very different groups of consumers. Health and well-being. It's not that it's gone away, but it's shifting. Traditional definitions of health, right, FDA types of definitions of health, are just as likely to be talked about as things as like fresh and organic. And I'll show you a chart about some of the different ways health and well-being are being defined by consumers today. And so we have to be thinking about all of these things as we're creating products that help them meet their unique health and well-being needs. Technology advancements hitting us in two big ways. One way is this whole idea of e-commerce, right? People shopping online. I think, 10 years ago, how many people were shopping on Amazon? How many people shop on Amazon today? And in addition to that, this proliferation of wearables and other technologies. I mean, most of us are carrying at least one of these in my other pocket. I don't want to pull out my mic. I have another one. I'm wearing a mic. Most people are wired with a Fitbit. So we're collecting a huge amount of data about ourselves, and companies are seeking to take advantage of that data in terms of how they market new products to you. And of course, socioeconomic forces. A scenario whereby we have, in a lot of ways, in well-developed countries, we see a diminishing middle class. In more emerging countries, we see a burgeoning middle class. It has big implications in terms of how goods and services are shifting around the world. So we've been actively working to reshape our portfolio and our company in response to this. There's really, I'm going to unpack a little bit more of this in some of the slides that are to come. But one of the things that we've been working on is, at the top of this, is becoming a leaner company, a more focused company. Like selling some of our European businesses, going through some consolidation and cost savings necessary to be able to operate as a profitable company in today's environment. We've also been, doing a lot more acquisitions in the areas of fresh and organic, right? We recognize these as being growth opportunities and consistent with how some consumers are defining health and well-being. And perhaps most importantly, what we've done is look to further define our purpose. Our purpose statement is, what we see as our vision or our mission, or what's guiding our strategic direction going forward. And that company purpose statement is real food that matters for life's moments. One of my best friends, who actually is also on the faculty here, told me that as I'm doing this talk, it's important to be thinking about it and not to be talking in corporate jargon, right? And I actually am somebody, this is sad but true, I get super excited by corporate jargon. Like when I hear it, I'm like, oh, I got to bring that into my vernacular, right? So, but I do want to do a good job of unpacking something, and please promise me if something is unclear or if I'm doing something in corporate speak, call me on it. We'll have enough time. I only have 30 slides. You can poke me and I'll stop for a minute. But real food that matters for life's moments. What does that mean? Well, what it means is real food is food that we're proud to serve. That means it's something that you look at a label, when you take it off shelf, you're proud to put it on your table. Real food has roots. Roots means that you understand where it's coming from, and you can trace it back, and you feel good about, from the whole farm to table process, that you have information about that product, you can trace it back, you feel good about how it's being grown, and then real food is prepared with care, right? Opening up about our processing techniques and how we use thermal processing to cook the food and to assure that it's safe. Real food should be accessible to all. Good nutrition and health should not just be the domain of a select group of people that can afford it, and making sure that food is accessible and affordable is a key area that we focus on at Campbell. And transparency builds trust. I'm not going to stand up here, and say that the food industry has always enjoyed the greatest trust of consumers. So we look at it this way. Consumers have a right to know what's in our food, and we're going to tell them. And if we're going to tell them, you, all of us as consumers, it's important not only to say what's in your product, but what are you going to change? And so we're taking active steps to do that. And I want to be clear. This is a journey. But part of this journey is about taking a stand and taking a position on different areas, like things like GMO. We've agreed to label them. We're leading the industry in that way. At the same time, we're taking a position that it's safe. so that we can enter into a dialogue with consumers and have a meaningful discussion so that we can continue to evolve. Not only that, but also, for some of these science-based matters, there's a lot of detail there. So if you don't open up and talk a bit about what's in your portfolio, how do you ever have that? How do you ever have a meaningful dialogue? Because then it becomes a question of extent. Somebody can say you're not doing enough, or you're not doing enough at this area. But if you don't take a chance to be transparent with people, they're not going to trust you out of the gate. If you can get more specific, you have more of an opportunity to have a meaningful conversation. So this is a little bit more about how we're activating that purpose, right? And the way that we see that we can use real food to have a meaningful difference is we want to be the leading health and well-being food company. And there's certain strategic imperatives that we're leaning into to make that happen. The first major strategic imperative is strengthening our core, right? Strengthening our core for us means our core business, our base businesses, right? Shelf-stable soups, beverages, and snacks. And we want to make sure that we're delivering real food and that we're doing it in a transparent and a sustainable way. We also recognize that, we can't shy away from e-commerce. Campbell is traditionally a more retail-based entity, right? Meaning that we make a product, we put it on the shelf at retail and it sells. It's a whole different ecosystem now, and we have to be, where people shop. Then expanding into faster growing spaces, right? Areas that are growing more quickly. We definitely see fresh, health and well-being as part of that. When I say health, that includes traditional definitions of health, and it also includes some of the consumer definitions of health, which means that we are going to actively expand in organic and fresh. When I say that, though, it doesn't mean that organic and fresh in and of itself is enough. We have to be thinking about what benefits are there and providing the right combinations within those products so that consumers can realize those health benefits that are most important to them. And of course, snacking, right? And the opportunity in snacking is thinking about my moments, making that snacking moment more meaningful to help to provide the right dietary patterns, the right nutritional needs, and ultimately the right benefits for people to help improve their lives. So this chart from a recent Health Focus 2017 survey helps to show some of the complexity in delivering health and wellness in food. You'll see that some of the highest ranking areas, like fresh, grown without pesticides, no high fructose corn syrup, no artificial sweeteners, are not necessarily places where there's a firm scientific reason to believe or a promulgation of dietary guidelines in terms of what does that mean from a nutritional quality standpoint. At the same time, though, there's also a lot of more traditional things or traditional nutritional needs that are incorporated there. Things that are logically important, high fiber. Well, yes, of course. We know that people aren't getting enough fiber. The idea of getting lower sodium or lower sugar, lower trans fat. Also, too, we're starting to see some of these naturally functional benefits, right? This idea that people want to promote digestive health. And even if you unpack that, because I've done a lot of looking at digestive health is a super interesting area because of the fact that digestive health could mean microbiome, and what can the microbiome do for me? But it's just as likely to mean something that's not in there, right? Lactaid does a whole commercial series on what is not in there as a means of digestive health. So you kind of have to be thinking on both sides. And is it like, well, does digestive health mean that something, that the expectation is that it's lactose-free or gluten-free or low FODMAPs? Does it mean that I'm looking for, prebiotics or probiotics, or is it something at the intersection? And the reality of it is it depends highly on the product and the consumer that you're trying to reach. So let me talk a little bit about what we have been doing in health and well-being. And then let me talk a little bit more about where do we go to answer some of these more difficult questions and differences between consumers. So we are seeking to lead the industry on real food and transparency. If you go to what'sinmyfood.com, what you can go on is different brands and you can read about what is in the food. As I said, we feel that people have a right to know what's in their food, and we have an obligation to do something about that. So if you go in there, you can also see our real food index and our progress against things like removing artificial flavors or artificial colors. You can also get more information about things like GMOs, which of our products have them, why they have them, and why we're labeling it. As I said, we've been aggressively going after opportunities in fresh and organic with our acquisition of Bolthouse Farms, Plum Organics, Garden Fresh Gourmet, and our pending acquisition of Pacific Foods. And a lot of our new products over the course of the last few years have really focused on health and well-being. So our Farmer's Market, which is a clean label sauce with no added sugar. Well, yes, a very, a really, really tasty culinary inspired soup that brings together really great nutrition guardrails and some exciting new ingredients. Brings together a lot of very veg-forward types of products, incorporates a lot of things like legumes, grains, high fiber base. We recently just launched this line of plant protein-based milks, focusing on yellow pea as their base. Within Plum, we've gone into organic baby food. VitaWheat, we've done some innovation that is really looking at clinical-based work. So if any, you may not be familiar with VitaWheat. This is a multi-grain cracker sort of product in Australia. We did clinical work that is somewhat similar to the Belvita story, right? Showing that you can manage blood sugar levels over time and that the consistency of those blood sugar levels is also associated with a reduced hunger. So now you also see some things on here like farmhouse cookies, and you might be saying, well, how does farmhouse cookies fit into health and well-being? It's a clean label cookie, and it's a really, really delicious cookie. I'm not going to sit up here and say that it is a healthier cookie. It's not, it's a cookie. But again, consistent with where people are with their different people with their definitions of health and well-being, it's a clean label and it tastes better because we're using real ingredients. Excellent question, yes. So clean label is ingredients that you would recognize. So, butter, sugar, salt. Actually, I shouldn't say it's ingredients you would recognize, because you would recognize, I'm sure, almost any ingredient we'd throw at you. But for somebody that's, yes, for something that you would see in your pantry. As we're on this journey to become the leading health and well-being company, we do have some great credentials. And my group is responsible for actually, helping to collate this. And it's a huge amount of work to put together into this one slide. But we have about $1 billion in sales now in our fresh division. We have a top 10 organic portfolio that's growing double digits. It's actually about 16 billion of servings of vegetables annually through our products, complemented by about 3.5 billion servings of whole grain. One of the nice things about our product, right, particularly with our soups, is we have 500 plus products with 100 calories or less per serving in the US alone. And we have more than 1,000 products with a healthy level of sodium and 560 products that meet FDA criteria for healthy. So again, yes, we want to be sensitive to how consumers define health and well-being, but that 560 plus products translates to about 30% of our portfolio meets criteria for healthy. 55% of the portfolio would be better for you, nutritionally advantaged, right? Meaning that it'd be lower in fat, calories, sugar, or salt. Now, here's the tricky part of this. When I talk about real food and talk about transparency and talk about things like organic or natural or real, the whole industry is moving in this direction rapidly. It's really become table stakes, right? Base of the pyramid. The mass market consumer, the typical consumers are looking for this now. It's expected. So real food is foundational. If you think about other types of consumers that are a little bit more leading edge on the nutrition side are what we call broadly the lifestyle consumers. So I should say the base of the pyramid is about 50% of consumers. The middle would represent, say, 30%. These lifestyle consumers are seeking tribes, they're seeking tribes and benefits. What I mean by tribe is a diet tribe, right? Paleo, plant-based, flexitarian. All of those could fit in. Benefits are, again, when I'm talking about naturally functional benefits. So again, it's on a base of real food, but looking for the benefits that those foods can help to provide, right? Ilya's talk today is a very good example, right? How do you unlock the intrinsic goodness of those real foods for real benefits? And then the technology consumers, right? These are the ones that are wired. They are looking for more objective measures of health. So, and that's an important delineation between, what we call lifestyle consumer and what we call a technology consumer. A lifestyle consumer may be self-selecting in. They may not need gluten-free, but they may think it is important for them. A technology consumer tends to be more objective. I want to get data, right? I want to look things up. I want to talk with my doctor. I want to get, I want to get genotyped. I want to get blood work done. I want to understand about what is best for my body. So they're looking for sort of this hyper degree of personalization. So what does this mean for us? From a Campbell standpoint, when we're thinking about the mass market consumer, we're going to go down that real healthy food play. To boil it down as simply as possible, there's a no-no list, and we've been focusing very much on what we're taking out. But there's a yes-yes list. It's what do we want to bring back? What do we want to bring in? I touched on that. It's vegetables and whole grains, but what it's going to be evolving to is going to be more purposeful plant-based nutrition to realize some new benefits, right? This is one of my lame puns, harvest benefits of vegetables and whole grains, right, through plant-based foods to deliver naturally functional benefits. And I can tell you some of the benefits that we're focusing on. I touched on them already. Digestive health is an important area for us, both in terms of what we remove and what we add back. Another area that we're looking at is energy for mind and body. And I think that that's really important because part of that is about how do we manage our energy substrates, right? The Vita-Wheat study is a good example, looking at changes in glucose. But the important thing here is that if we can do that in a responsible and a study-based way, what I love is the head fake that's underneath it. What I mean by that is that if we can help people manage blood glucose to help to manage their energy, you're also developing a real plant-based solution that can help the large proportion of people that might be in a pre-diabetic state. And then, of course, the technology consumer. This is really about looking at personalized nutrition for everyone. How do we democratize personalized nutrition? How do you make it accessible and affordable? And what's the big question around personalized nutrition? I think there's a lot of levels of personalization. I mean, to some extent, we call them out in our existing dietary guidelines or DRIs. It's not a one-size-fits-all by gender or by age. But the information has to be easily accessed. The information has to be understood. The information has to enable a behavior change, and that behavior change has to result in a sustainable change in health. If we don't have that, we don't have a successful personalized nutrition program. So where are we going? We're looking to define the future of food through foresight, right? So when we deal with consumers, a lot of times we talk about getting consumer insights, understanding what a consumer needs and why. Foresight, as it implies, is about understanding where consumers are going to be going. And as I said at the very beginning, our foresights are kind of at this intersection of real food, health and well-being, and technology for our longer-term planning. And from an enterprise perspective, that means across the company, we're looking at these areas: future commerce, limitless local, my moments, and better.me. So let me talk a little bit about what those names mean. Future commerce, right? What we're seeing right now is that a large percentage of consumers are visiting cooking websites to find recipes. 64% of people who try online shopping find it more convenient. And the compound annual growth rate of online food and beverage sales between 2016 and 2021 is expected to be 66 billion. I was actually reading an article this morning that said that the expectation for online grocery for 2025 is $100 billion. Kind of funny to me because back in 2008, I pitched a personalized nutrition program that would be delivered through online grocery to a series of venture capitalists. My friend that was an online grocer, his business folded, and the venture capitalists told me that online grocery would never take off. So I'm just sharing that because it's a little bit of indication, but but it's changed. But the big point here is how fast that's changed, right? In 9 years, you have 25% of people that are, at least doing some of their grocery shopping online, and it's on its way to being a more than $100 billion business. Limitless local foresight. So this kind of embraces two things. When I talk about transparency, part of the transparency is about the food itself, but part of it is about the sourcing. So this is taking steps to help people get closer to their food. And part of it is this idea of like more regional or local farming as we're moving more towards urbanization. But the other aspect about this is around, telling the narrative better about where the food is coming from. Because part of the sustainability solution is also getting food, is getting food from different regions, but helping people feel good about the food that you're bringing in. And so I think that, that is really important. And I think we have an obligation to do that. A lot of you might not know is with our Bolthouse acquisition, we are the second largest producer of carrots in the world. And I don't mean carrot use, I mean produce, grown in the ground and some of that makes it to your store as well as to other products. In addition to what I was saying about transparency when it comes to food, if you're interested in our sustainability efforts, we also publish those online. I'd be happy to speak to some of that. My Moments Foresights, this gets into the purposeful snacking, right? We know the trends right now are people are eating more snacks. One of the terms we like to talk about internally is SMEALs, right? Kind of that in between, like that small meal snacking occasion. But if people are, we're at a place now where people are maybe getting 35 to 40% of their calories from snacks, that's huge. And a huge amount of snacks right now are lots of simple carbs without a lot of nutritional value. How do we work to help to make those more purposeful moments, more mindful moments? And when I mean more mindful, getting people to slow down, think about what they're eating, and make selections that are ultimately better for their health. And this also touches a little bit on some of the benefit spaces that I had spoke to before, but this becomes also very important for our snacking program. And now, better.me, right? So this is getting into personalization and integrating different sources into that personalization, right? We know that the wearable market is exploding. And people are using their smartphones, 82% of people say that smartphone users say tech has improved eating. I'm not sure if that's exactly sharing pictures of what people eat. I don't know that necessarily has a lot to do so much with health as finding the next great restaurant, but I think there's an excellent opportunity to bring those two things together. And at various times, people are looking to restrict one or more items from their diet. It's a really interesting, it's a really interesting phenomenon. I'll come back to the last talk. There's a huge disassociation between people that have, again, coming back to that 50 or 55 age range, that you have, when you talk to consumers, almost every consumer by the time they are at age 50 has something going on, right? And with something it might mean cholesterol is a little high or blood pressure is high, right? Something. But if I recall correctly, I do think it's in excess of 75%. At the same time, though, you get nearly 50% of people that rate themselves in excellent health. So there's some kind of a disconnect there, right? And that also speaks to me that there's probably an insight or an opportunity there that people acknowledge that they have a condition, but they don't necessarily want, there may be a reluctance to acknowledge a need to change, or that change is difficult. So how can we make it easier to both support their health goals, which might be, I have this issue, but I want to run a half marathon, but help me to address where I have a challenge. So again, I do think in this context, the next frontier is going to be this area of personalized nutrition, right? It's reconfiguring diets according to an individual's specific physiology, lifestyle, and health goals, but there's another part to this, which is that behavior component. Because I think the same way that, yes, we have different biology, but we also respond to different behavior reinforcement. And we're only going to unlock this if biological sciences, nutrition science, big data, and behavior lock arms. I've seen a lot of different definitions of what personalized nutrition is. I'd like to share this with you because I think sometimes it becomes, or we work to make it overly complex. I would submit to you that personalized nutrition begins with an objective and credible measure of health. that measure should provide somebody with usable information, understandable information that would allow them to improve a dietary component or pattern. And then that should drive a behavior change, meaning the person is empowered and willing to act on that information. And what enables that for different people may be different. That should lead to an outcome. And coming back to one of the earlier slides, a meaningful outcome is a quantifiable improvement in health. And then you should measure again. Because if you've improved your health outcome, what got you to the game, what got you to the dance, might not be the same that's going to get you to the next level. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about Habit. Habit is a personalized nutrition company that I am the co-founder of, along with, as I mentioned earlier, my friend Neil Grimmer, and a wonderful group. And we've really been looking to see how can we bring together some of these principles in a business opportunity. I want to talk a little bit about what Habit is. Habit is based on how and how we've been approaching it. Habit is an independent company, but Campbell is the sole investor. So we say that personalized nutrition at Habit is from test to table. It includes biotesting, results, coaching, right, behavior modification, and personalized meals. Right now, we launched in about 2 months ago. Nationally, the fresh food is only in the Bay Area. So let me take apart a little bit about what are the components of it. So it includes an at-home test that allows you to collect samples to analyze over 60 indicators in your blood. We also collect information on genetics and a variety of different body measures, right? And we incorporate those to help to put together a dietary plan. This plan shows up in your nutritional recommendations, so you get a detailed report and you get the opportunity to sit down with a coach to go through the guidance in detail. And as I said, then it also links back to personalized meals, right? So we have about 1,000 different iterations of different meals to help people reach their diet goals. So what are the key inputs? We are looking at DNA, right? And diet influences gene expression. So we recognize that we need to look at more. And I think that, there's value in genes, and I think that there's very, very much value in looking at genes, but from what I've seen, that even some of the best GWAS models don't predict a large enough percentage of the variance. And so for that reason, we want to look at phenotype, right? Which is taking a look at your biomarkers, understanding a little bit more about how those genes are expressed. And we do that in a unique way. We work closely with TNO, the Dutch research organization, to apply this phenotypic challenge, right? So what this is, for this audience, this is an oral glucose lipid protein tolerance test, right? Well substantiated by several studies and shown to have different effects on healthy versus people that may be less healthy, like obese or diabetes, as a basis for understanding changes once you take in that meal. One of the things I like to say is, to help you understand what you should eat, you have to challenge your body with food. So this drink looks a lot like a large American breakfast in composition, right? So think egg, cheese, and sausage croissant with a side of tater tots and a large orange juice or a frappuccino, and gives you kind of a sense about the calorie load that you're getting. We do a time course following that. Take all that information along with body measures, integrate it, and get at your habit recommendations. As part of that, though, we also take into consideration goals. Are you trying to lose weight? Are you looking to start to train for an event? Because those goals are very important, right? It's important not only for nutritional recommendations, it's also very important in terms of motivation. And then what we bring that together in is what we call our nutrition intelligence engine, and that gives you a list of what your diet plan would look like, what might be some foods are recommended for you, what would be in those foods. Here are some recipes. Here's a community of other people that might have some where you might have some similarity with. Okay. So, and then I just want to wrap up with, Habit is one example of where Campbell is leaning into new models of innovation. But we recognize to continue to grow and thrive in this changing work environment, or this, in the changing world environment, in fact, that we have to embrace new models of innovation. So there's an element there about, more thoughtful mergers and acquisitions in faster growing spaces. Pacific Organic is one example of that. We need to be partnering with other suppliers to complement our R&D. And when I say that, there's a lot of different places with that. Part of the suppliers can be people that are providing us ingredients. Flavor houses have wonderful, innovation capabilities. And it certainly includes partnerships with universities as well, like yourselves. We're expanding our footprint in venture capital. Some of you might have heard that Campbell invested in this Acre Fund, which allows us to actively seek and vet, and they operate independently, new business opportunities for us. And we're leaning in a lot to incubators, startups, and accelerators. What I mean by that, on the last part of it, is we're actually going out and we are meeting with some of these different incubator or accelerator types of places, these small businesses, and doing a reverse pitch to them, saying Campbell is interested in these different areas. How might we work together? And then they come back with like a variety of different new ideas to help us reach innovation. It's a really interesting, it's a really interesting and fun model, and I've had a chance to learn a lot with that. So I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you a bit more about Campbell, how we've been evolving, how we look to continue to evolve, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.